Good afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us here on RSBN Live. A lot of live streams today, a lot going on, of course, over at CPAC. You can watch that. You can also watch this. The White House press briefing slated to start in about 27 minutes from now. So we'll have that White House press briefing in its entirety right here on RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Thanks again for streaming in as we see the president move to even greater things when it comes to the amount of executive orders he's signed. We're told he signed 73 executive orders so far. That's a lot of executive orders, but they're all based in the great campaign promises that he had over the campaign season. So we're seeing the promises made, promises kept happening every day through this administration, as today marks exactly 1 month in office for President Trump. So looking forward to hearing from the White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt here shortly. Last night, President Trump also on Air Force One signed some executive orders and also held a press conference of his own. We'll play that in its entirety here for those of you that missed it, as there's a lot of news going on today. So let's get to a couple sponsors, and then we will talk about some of the programming notes, and then we'll go to that Air Force One press conference from just last night. We'll play that in its entirety. It's about 14 minutes long, but here at the end of the day, we're here, of course, for the White House press briefing. As soon as that starts, we'll take that live as well. So Colonial Metals Group, a great sponsor here at the network. All you have to do is go to freegoldguy.com for more information on tax-sheltered IRAs, 401ks, everything when it comes to the retirement, right? You have a savings, you have some extra money maybe. Putting that into gold and silver, always a good idea because it's high value. It won't shake, rattle, and roll there. It'll stay solid, and that's what we need is that great financial peace of mind. You can get that through Colonial Metals Group, so it's freegoldguy.com/RSBN. You can get a free info kit. Let's also talk about Brightcore. The Kimchi One product is quite awesome. You see that on the right side of your screen there. 888-722-0936. mybrightcore.com/RSBN. If you buy two, you get one free. So this kimchi is a probiotic that obviously does a number of great things for our health, and it's that one step closer to making America healthy again. So just go to mybrightcore.com/RSBN for that discount as well. All right, so plenty of major achievements, of course, from President Trump in this first 30 days. He's done more in that 30 days than I don't think any president has ever done. So a lot of great accomplishments that we've seen here, everything from the border to health to wealth when it comes to the economy, working on getting that squared away. You know, so many great items that we actually got an email in regards to the amount of items that we will share with you throughout today's broadcasts. But the president's schedule today, 1 o'clock, of course, outside of the president's schedule is this, the 1 o'clock press conference with the press secretary and senior White House officials. Around 1:45, we're hearing that the Senate will have a final vote on Kash Patel for the director of the FBI. So that's about 1:45. At 3 o'clock, the president hosts a reception honoring Black History Month. That's in the East Room of the White House. And later tonight, you can watch as well this speech of President Trump, his remarks at the Republican Governors Association meeting. All this on the heels of, in the sports world, a kind of a fun thing happening later, the USA-Canada Hockey Championship that the NHL has out there. So that starts at 8 o'clock. President Trump actually called Team USA from before their morning skate in Boston, just congratulating the guys and also encouraging them to go out there and obviously do great and win. And then President Trump also on Truth Social speaking about the game a little bit. You can catch that on his Truth Social. So let's go to just last night. So within the 24/7 news cycle from Air Force One, President Trump held what they call a press gaggle. So it's basically a quick press conference. It's about 14 minutes in length. We're going to take that in full here in a second. And as soon as the press conference at the White House live happens, we'll be going to the White House press briefing room. Let's go to Air Force One from last night.
Hello, everybody. So you just saw this. This just came out. And I'd say that's quite good, right? By any standard, that's quite good. I shouldn't leave USA. Is anybody here from USA today?
Yesterday we had someone.
Yesterday. We missed it. Does everybody know Stephen Chung? He's a sweetheart. You wouldn't want to get in a fight with him, right? Anyway, what's up?
Mr. President, the TikTok deal, any developments there?
No, there's a lot of people interested in TikTok, and I think we have a chance of doing something good. And we'll be speaking to China about that also, because they're a party to it, obviously. But it would be great to keep TikTok alive, sell it to somebody that's going to do a great job with it.
Did you see the CEO today at the event, sir?
Did I what?
Did you see the CEO today
No,
at the event?
I didn't speak to him. Was he there?
He was supposed to be there.
I think so, yeah, but I did not see him.
Sir, Elon Musk is proposing potentially giving money to Americans based on what Doge is finding. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I love it. A 20% dividend, so to speak, for the money that we're saving by going after the waste and fraud and abuse and all of the other things that are happening. I think it's a great idea.
How much money do you think?
Could be a lot. I mean, if it's 20%, we'd give back a lot of money to the taxpayer. And also it would give an incentive for the taxpayer to go out and report things to us where we can save money.
So you signed an immigration-related executive order today. What do you think of ICE arrests right now? Do you think that they need to increase the number of people they're arresting?
Where?
The pace of the ICE.
No, I think they're doing a great job. You know, you have people that are hiding. They're professionals at hiding. That's what they've done for a big part of their lives. And they're criminals in many cases, very serious criminals, including murderers. And obviously they're not easy to capture, but they're being captured in record numbers, and they're being brought out of our country, being brought back to where they came from.
Mr. President, on Boeing, you mentioned maybe taking a different route. What would a different route entail? On Boeing, with the Air Force One plane?
No, I'm not happy with Boeing. It takes them a long time to do, Air Force One. We gave that contract out a long time ago. It was a fixed price contract, and I'm not happy with the fact that it's taken so long. And we may do something else. We may go out, buy a plane or get a plane or something, but I'm not happy with the fact that it's taken Boeing so long. There's no excuse for it. And they had a fixed price contract. I made that deal. And now they're losing a lot of money, and they'd like to see if they can, up the price. But I make fixed price deals. I don't like time and material deals.
Sir, the only other commercial aircraft maker that could make a plane that big is Airbus. Would you consider buying it?
I would not consider Airbus over Boeing, no. But I could buy one that was used and convert it. I could buy one from another country, perhaps, or get one from another country. So we're looking at other alternatives because it's taken Boeing too long. They were supposed to be finished like years ago.
Yeah.
Years ago. Don't forget, I signed that contract during my term, and it was a very good contract. And I took like $1.6 billion off the price, and it was supposed to be done, quickly, and it's a long time, right?
Would you push for your preferred color scheme for Air Force
Oh no,
One?
it's going to be that color. Yeah, no matter what, it's going to be for that color.
Sir, about Gaza, do you find the Egyptian proposal to redevelop Gaza acceptable? Does
I
that
haven't
change?
seen it. I haven't seen it. When I see it, I'll let you know.
So earlier about Ukraine, you said today that you had a deal on critical minerals and Ukraine broke it.
Yeah, we had a deal where we were going to get... Look, you have to understand, Europe is being paid back the money that they put up, and they're only putting up a fraction of what we're putting up. I think they're in for $100 billion, and we're in for $350 billion. There's no reason that should have happened. It's Biden's fault. He shouldn't have allowed that to happen. But on top of it all, they're getting their $100 billion back, and we're not. And I've been talking about this for 2 years. I said, you have to loan them the money so that if things work out, they're going to pay you back. And they didn't do that. So Biden didn't do it. It's his fault. Nobody's ever seen anything so stupid. So Europe gets their money back, and they're only in for a small fraction. And obviously, everything's important, but it's more important for them because they're right next to Russia. So it's more important than we have an ocean in between us. So it's obviously more important in the European countries than it is to the U.S. But here's the thing. We don't get our money back. And we told them that the deal is we'll do something for the rare earth and some oil, et cetera, and that'll be all right. And they agreed to it, more or less. And then Scott Bessent actually went there and was treated rather rudely because essentially they told him no, and Zelensky was sleeping, and unavailable to meet him. He traveled many hours on the train, which is a dangerous trip. And we're talking about the Secretary of the Treasury. He went there to get a document signed. And when he got there, he came back empty. They wouldn't sign the document. But for Europe, they pay back their money. It's a loan. Think of that. And we should have a loan too. But we had an administration that was incompetent.
Can you resurrect that deal? Is there anything that you can do?
Yeah, I think I'm going to resurrect it. Or, you know, we'll see what happens. But I'm going to resurrect it, or things are not going to make him too happy. And look, it's time for elections. They haven't had an election in a long time. It's wonderful to say, you know, we can't have an election, but it's time for elections. And it's also time to find out what happened with all the money. Because he made the statement that half of it, he doesn't know where it is, or something like that. And I'd like to find out all the money that we've been sending to Ukraine, where is it? And I can tell you we're doing very well with Russia. We're going to do something with Russia that he was unable to do. We can make a deal with Russia to stop the killing of, you know, potentially additional millions of people. The soldiers are being just wiped out on both sides, wiped out. It's horrible. You know, the weaponry today is so powerful, so, you know, strong, that it's killing a lot of soldiers. And I don't want to see they're Russian and they're Ukrainian. I don't want to see those soldiers killed. They have mothers and fathers, they have sisters and brothers. I don't want to see them killed.
Mr. President, on tariffs, you mentioned lumber. That's something that I don't believe we've heard before.
Lumber, yeah, forest products, yeah.
And do you have a rate in mind for that?
No, but we're thinking about maybe 25%.
And would that also be April 2nd? Or before April 2nd?
In that vicinity, yeah, a little bit later.
And also, which car companies did you said that you spoke with some car companies?
I spoke to all car companies. Everybody's coming back into America.
So these are foreign car companies?
Including foreign companies, yeah. They're going to be coming in because they don't want to pay the tariffs.
You said you'll be having lunch with some Democrats next week. Can you elaborate on who that is and what y'all plan to
Well, you'll
discuss?
see when I do it. But some good ones.
Are you gonna
Some
talk about
biggies.
Are you concerned about congressional funding?
No, I think we're going to just talk. I think it would be great if Republicans and Democrats could get along. It's time. It's time. Makes sense.
Sir, would you say you trust the Russians to negotiate in good faith going forward? Do you trust
I
them?
do. I think the Russians want to see the war end. And I do. I really do. But I think they have the cards a little bit because, you know, they've taken a lot of territory. So they have the cards.
Mr. President, have you set a date for the British Prime Minister's visit to Washington?
No, he'll be coming soon, though. He's asked to come and see me. So he'll
What
be
about
coming.
Macron?
And President of France also. Macron will be coming
But no set dates yet.
very soon. Maybe Monday.
Mr. President, on congestion pricing, so they're going to be, it's supposed to have saved about, or raised about $15 billion to help the MTA. Do you have an alternative way to fund the MTA system now that they're
No,
working?
that's up to New York. They have to do that. Look, New York's treated a lot of people very badly. And it's hard to, you know, it's hard to feel sorry for what's happened in New York. It's sad to see the way they've treated people. And they continue to do it. And, you know, look at what's going on with the mayor. Look at what's going on with so many other things. So congestion pricing is not a good situation. And they're treating the people of New York very badly. Supposing you worked in a shoe shop or you worked in a restaurant as a waiter and you have to come into Manhattan and they're taking, you know, many dollars out of your pocket. You can't afford to do it. And pricing, you know, if you take a look, traffic will go down because people aren't going to come. If people don't come, that means the whole place it's going to be a disaster. So it could be, and it's probably going to show that traffic will come down, but that's going to spend their money in New York. They'll go someplace else.
Are you prepared to go to court if lawsuits ensue?
Well, we'll see what happens. You can give me the final because I haven't seen it as of late today because I was making a speech. Did I make a good speech? Yes. Okay. Go ahead. What else?
Can I ask you about the Chinese? So, you know, eventually you would like to meet with President Xi.
Yeah.
But
I have a very good relationship with President Xi. I think a great relationship with President Xi. But remember, he loves China, and I love the USA. So, you know, right there's a little bit of competitiveness. But the relationship I have with President Xi is, I would say, a great one.
We heard that
It was obviously hurt by COVID coming in. It hurt them, hurt us, hurt everybody, hurt the whole world. But outside of that, I have a very, very good relationship with President Xi.
Are you looking at
I think he's a very unique person.
would you make a new trade deal with China? I mean, you know,
Yeah,
that
it's
phase
possible.
one trade deal never really got
It's possible. Well, we did a great trade deal with China. We did it great for the farmers, great for manufacturers. They had to buy $50 billion worth of our product, and we were making them buy it. The problem is that Biden didn't push them to adhere to it.
Do you think D.C. should govern itself, or do you think that governing of District of Columbia should go back to Congress?
I think that we should govern District of Columbia. It's so important, the D.C. situation. I think that we should run it strong, run it with law and order, make it absolutely flawlessly beautiful. And I think we should take over Washington, D.C., make it safe. People are getting killed, people are being hurt. You have a great police department there, but somehow they're not utilized properly. We should govern D.C. I think the federal government should take over the governance of D.C. and run it really, really properly. And I like the mayor. I get along great with the mayor. But they're not doing the job. Too much crime, too much graffiti, too many tents on the lawns of these magnificent lawns, and there's tents, and it's a sad thing. Homeless people all over the place, and we got to take care of the homeless. But you can't have that in Washington, D.C. When they come over to see me, like Macron is coming, and the Prime Minister of UK is coming, and all these people are coming over to see me. We'll have ultimately President Xi, and we'll have everybody coming, right? And you can't let that be. You just can't let that happen. You can't have tents all over your once magnificent plazas and lawns and all. You just can't do it.
We'll do a couple more.
Sir, do you think you can still pay for extending your tax cuts without cutting both Medicaid and Medicare?
Yeah, absolutely.
House Republicans are planning to make cuts too.
Well, I think we're going to take in tremendous tariff money, number one. And number two, you take a look at Doge and you see what's happening. We're saving billions of dollars.
On Doge, do you know what they're looking at specifically at the Department of Defense right now?
They're looking at everything.
And are they going to cut more national
They're looking at. We're
security
going to go into
positions?
Fort Knox to make sure the gold is there.
Are they going to
You know that we're going to go into Fort Knox. Do you know about that?
Sir,
That was a bad bump.
Are they going to eliminate more national security positions, civilians there?
We'll see what happens. But one of the things we do want to look, we hope everything's fine with Fort Knox, but we're going to go to Fort Knox, the fabled Fort Knox, to make sure the gold is there.
where would the gold have
President, you
gone?
haven't brought up.
If the gold isn't there, we're going to be very upset.
You haven't brought up Greenland in a while. Are you?
No, we need Greenland from the standpoint of national security and international security. We have to do something with Greenland. We have to protect Greenland. But we need it for national security, and we need it, maybe more importantly, for international security.
All right, we'll just do one more.
Can I just follow up? Are you seeing it as part of any of the discussions you're having with Europeans and Putin in some sort of peace deal?
No, we have to have Greenland because of the national security picture. Even more so now than it would have been 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when they talked about it then too. They used to talk about it years ago. They were talking about Greenland, but much more so now with, modern weaponry, planes and the speed of planes and all of the things. So we have to have Greenland. Thank you very much.
Can you tell us
you.
what
Mr.
executive
President.
orders you signed this afternoon? Thank you.
All right, there you go. Air Force One just yesterday, President Trump holding that press conference there on the plane on the way back to Joint Base Andrews. Of course, President Trump back in Washington, D.C. now. A lot going on inside the Beltway and right outside the Beltway, too. Of course, CPAC taking place. The Vice President speaking earlier today. Also, today marks the 1 month, exactly 1 month in office for President Trump. A lot of accomplishments that we're seeing in fruition and completed as well in just those 30 days. We're going to go over those in just a minute. You're looking live, of course, at the White House press briefing room. As soon as that press conference starts, we will take you there live. Also, just saw the directive that at 1:45, around 1:45, for the Senate final vote for Kash Patel, that will be live on Right Side Broadcasting Network. So whether that's on this live stream right here or on another live stream, just look out for it, because there's a lot of news going on today. Of course, we have CPAC on one of the streams. Kash Patel coming up here in about 45 to an hour from now. We'll have the press conference in full. On top of that, 2 other live events throughout the day, while CPAC continues as well until about 5 or 6. We'll have the 3 o'clock East Room of the White House. President Trump will be honoring Black History Month there, so we'll have that coverage. And then later tonight, the president will speak to the Republican Governors Association. He'll speak there around 7. So all of these different times that you might be hearing all over the place, all you have to do is really monitor our Rumble page, our YouTube page, X, Truth Social, as we bring you live coverage. So what you're seeing here, of course, is RSBN Live of Matthew Alvarez. And then, of course, on the CPAC stream, if you'd like to watch that as well, maybe you have 2 different phones or TVs or whatever you'd like to do. But at the end of the day, it's great to have these options for you to be able to pick which coverage you want to see live, all of it together as a network here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Okay, so as we await the White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt to take to the podium there, the past 30 days, have been quite awesome, as you guys have seen. There are a lot of accomplishments. I'm going to go through a few of them here as we list the number of executive orders and other accomplishments done and signed by President Trump. As we get to that in just a second, Dan Scavino Jr. actually posting on X from Senate Republicans. The Senate Republicans said, quote, Senate Republicans will confirm Kash Patel today. There's nothing Democrats can do about it, end quote. So that from the Senate Republicans, Dan Scavino Jr. on Truth also highlighting that post. So it's looking like Kash Patel will be the director of the FBI. Again, you'll see that live coverage a bit later here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. So let's get to some of these accomplishments. Let's go with the border. President Trump declared a national border emergency, allowing DOD to deploy National Guard and active duty military to secure the southern border. So these are all campaign promises that we've seen actually come through and be completed already in this first 30 days. So we're just going over some of the accomplishments over the past 30 days that are all based in that common sense and truth that we see for the American people here. We're seeing that we wanted the border to be taken care of. If you remember at all of those rallies that we were at, the people, all of us were saying, what are the top, few issues or policy issues you want to see with the president? And one that we'd always hear is immigration or closing the border or the economy or defending our rights, that kind of thing. So we're seeing that go full steam ahead under this president. Also, we're looking at with the border, we know that currently, according to the White House, there are roughly 5,000 active duty soldiers along the southern border with Mexico. The president also ended catch and release, ensuring detained illegal migrants won't be released back into our streets. There's an executive order that will help ensure, of course, all of this, tragedies like the sexual assault and murder of 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungary, who was killed by 2 illegal migrants, released by Biden's DHS pending immigration court hearings, that no longer occurs. Reestablished Remain in Mexico, and also the border wall construction has resumed in California and Texas, adding to the more than 400 miles of border wall built during the prior Trump administration. So these are going over just a few of the things that President Trump was promising during that campaign trail. We're seeing them come to fruition. You're seeing the cause and the effect, and it's happening at lightning speed right now throughout this country. Let's look at FEMA. He revitalized FEMA's effort to rebuild areas of western North Carolina that were ravaged by Hurricane Helene. Also within the economy, many items, including securing $20 billion in a foreign investment in new U.S. Various properties there when it comes to AI, but also Robert Simon, CEO of JSW Steel, praised President Trump's steel and aluminum tariffs, celebrating them as a project that will flood the U.S. with jobs as trading partners move their industries to U.S. soil to avoid the tariffs. So it's great to see that within the economy. Of course, just recently, the Secretary of Commerce, the U.S. Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, at his post now, and someone that is on the right track when it comes to the economy. As you guys have seen with President Trump, obviously a natural business leader, He knows exactly who to pick, especially when it comes to business. But outside of that, out of all the experience he's had since 2015, he was built for a time like this to become president and born to be president. I saw that post the other day by somebody. It's true, and we're seeing it happen right now. Many other CEOs backing President Trump's economic plan as well. He announced a slew of landmark economic agreements with foreign leaders. We've seen 4 foreign leaders so far visit the president at the White House, not only for good things for the economies, but also for safety and peace and securing, that, whether it's in the Middle East and things with, that 2,000 medically sick children out of Gaza going to Jordan, that being announced when the Jordan king was here, the crown prince. So it was great to see a lot of accomplishments by the president. Also lowering the cost of living. So he signed an executive order on day one, ordering the heads of all executive departments and agencies to deliver emergency price relief to the American people and increase the prosperity of the American worker. So there's a whole long list here: energy, DOGE, also DOJ, DOT, meetings with foreign leaders. I mean, this list is probably the longest email that I've seen come out of the White House, because at the end of the day, that was all done in just 30 days. So 15 days plus 15 more, that's all the time that he's had so far. And he has done more in those 30 days than I've seen in any presidential situation when it comes to 4 years. How about, let alone 30 days? I was thinking about that earlier as we approach the top of the hour here. As soon as Karoline Leavitt takes to that podium, we'll go there live. But I was thinking about the fact that the amount of work that's been done has been obviously lightning speed, historic speed and strength as we continue on covering everything that the president does here at the network. Just pretty wild to see the amount of achievements happening at this lightning speed. It's great to see it, and I know the American people are happy about it, because the majority of the country, of course, voted for President Trump. And all of these policies, I'm not just reading this because, oh, hey, I like President Trump, or no, these are all common sense leadership qualities and policies and moves done by the president. So as we, the people, enjoy what we're seeing so far, we're going to continue, I believe, in that same track, because, he did great things in the first administration. Looking forward to seeing more of the same. And interesting, it's only been 1 month, and there are still 3 years and 11 months left in this administration. That's a long time to get a lot of things done in the right direction for this country. Looking forward to hearing from the White House press briefing as well, the press secretary there, bringing in some other national security or national advisors there as well to share some of the accomplishments that the president has accomplished over the past 30 days. So again, a few programming notes for you. Around 1:45 on the Senate chamber floor, the Senate will have a final vote for Kash Patel. We'll have that live here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Again, Dan Scavino Jr. on Truth Social highlighting a Senate Republicans post saying, quote, "The Senate Republicans will confirm Kash Patel today. There's nothing Democrats can do about it." All right, then at 3 o'clock, the president hosts a reception honoring Black History Month in the East Room of the White House. And then later tonight, the president will deliver remarks at the Republican Governors Association meeting. So a lot on tap for this day. And then wouldn't it be great to see Kash Patel become the FBI director? Wouldn't it be great to just enjoy this coverage today, and including CPAC coverage that you're seeing so many great conservatives and patriots over there on that stream as well. So it's like a big day today for February 20th, 1 month into President Trump's presidency. And also tonight's game, Team USA taking on Canada for that championship. The NHL decided, instead of having the All-Star game, to have this 4 nations face-off. So Sweden and Finland, they were knocked out of it. So now it's USA versus Canada for the championship tonight in Boston. Just a quick sports question for you, rhetorical question, but will the people in Boston boo or cheer or stay silent during the Canadian national anthem? We'll see. But I know outside of that, it's going to be electric tonight at that TD Garden in Boston. Looking forward to seeing that game after President Trump's speech is concluded at the Republican Governors Association. All right, so we have a couple of sponsors here. Producer, which sponsors should we go to at 1:03 Eastern as we wait this White House press briefing? Tax Network USA, 800-357-1415, the number you see on your screen. You go to tnusa.com/RSBN for more information on how to settle back taxes and get that taken care of. Always great to get the peace of mind with that. So just go to 800-357-1415, and you can go to tnusa.com/RSBN as well. RepublicanRed.com, another great sponsor at the network. There are two wines that you see there, a sparkling wine and a red blend. I was trying to think if it was Pinot Noir or red blend. It's a red blend. You go to RepublicanRed.com. Check out the website. It's a great website, a lot of great selection there. Why not at least order one right now and use the RSBN promo code? A lot of good reviews, and then if you like, order more and just continue to order from RepublicanRed.com because it's a great group there, great organization, and great company. RepublicanRed.com, that RSBN promo code goes a long way as well for a percentage off. As we're just a few minutes after 1 o'clock, we see the White House press briefing room ready to go for the White House press secretary, and also I'm seeing that senior White House officials will be joining Karoline Leavitt, the White House press secretary. I believe that we'll be hearing a number of things. I mean, you would think that, it's a month in right now. We'll hear some of the accomplishments, but also we'll hear any other details that the press is wondering about. So we'll see what questions and answers will happen during this time. Also, again, on the heels of this press conference, I believe at this point, unless I hear otherwise, that right after this press conference, either it will be on this stream or a new stream for the Kash Patel. Okay, just hearing from the producer right now that there will be a new stream coming up at about 1:45 for Kash Patel, the final vote for him to be the director of the FBI. It'd be quite awesome to have him there. It's somebody that we can trust, and that is the key to all of this. I think it's a big key to all of this. We really trust these people. We trust them. We, the people that voted for President Trump, we trust him because he did great things in the first administration. We see that he's been a common sense leader. And if someone goes through what President Trump has gone through over the past 4 years and still sticks in the fight, he's an outsider. He's doing something that is for the American people by sticking to it. If he was just part of the establishment, he would have said, peace, I'm out of here. This is too much. He stuck through it all. And now we're seeing the fruits of that hard labor that he had to go through. We still have to keep, our balanced thought through this process. We still have to prepare for the best, hope for the best, prepare for the worst, of course. But at the end of the day, we're seeing a huge, awesome cabinet for President Trump. And each of these cabinet positions going to do great jobs for us, we the people. And I think that's what President Trump said the other day. He said, we won this election based off of small government and strong government. So he knows that this isn't about expanding government. Let's go to D.C. right now.
Marks 1 month of President Trump's return to the Oval Office, and there is no denying the administration is off to a historic start. The president has already signed 73 executive orders. That is more than double the number signed by Joe Biden and more than quadruple the number signed by Barack Obama over the same period. These executive orders have ended burdensome regulations, sealed the border, unleashed our domestic energy sector, eliminated divisive DEI from our federal government, stopped the weaponization of government, cut waste, fraud, and abuse, reinstituted America First trade and foreign policies, and ultimately restored common sense. The president also signed the Laken Riley Act into law, which ensures ICE will detain illegal aliens arrested or charged with theft or violence. As of today, the Senate has already confirmed 18 cabinet-level nominees, which is more than at this point under the Obama administration in 2009, and more than double the pace of the Biden administration in 2021. And today, we expect Kash Patel to be confirmed as the next director of the FBI. We are proud to announce that the president will host his first official cabinet meeting here at the White House next Wednesday, February 26th. In just 4 weeks, President Trump has already hosted the leaders of Israel, Japan, Jordan, and India. And next Monday, the president will host France's President Emmanuel Macron. And on Thursday, the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer will visit the White House as well. As you all know, over the past month, the president has taken questions from the press, all of you, nearly every single day, sometimes on multiple different occasions in the same day, on any topic any of you wish to talk about. President Trump set the tone on this approach immediately when he took more than 12 times the questions in his first few hours in office, as Joe Biden did in his entire first week. Yesterday, we hosted a local media row here at the White House with television and radio stations from across the country that reached up to 60 million viewers and listeners. In our ongoing pursuit of transparency on this 1 month celebration, I am thrilled to bring 3 of my colleagues and our policy experts here at the White House to further recap this incredible first month of accomplishments in greater detail. We have Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy and Homeland Security Advisor Stephen Miller, the Director of the National Economic Council, Kevin Hassett, and our National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz. I will hand it over to them. They will deliver brief remarks on the accomplishments of this administration in the first month, and then we will open it up to Q&A. When we open up the Q&A portion, I do ask, for the sake of efficiency in this room, that you direct your question to the principal you seek an answer from, and I will call on you in this room. But first, I will let them roll through their remarks, and first up, I'll turn it over to Stephen Miller.
Thank you. It's great to be back. And I want to just thank you all for joining today, our 1 month celebration of the most historic opening to a presidency in American history. No president comes close to what Donald Trump has achieved over just the last 30 days. He has packed 8 years of transformative action, restoring this nation, restoring our laws, restoring fairness, restoring economic opportunity, restoring national security in just 1 month. No one in this country has ever seen anything like it. And when you look at the consequentiality and the significance and the transformative nature of the actions he's taking, it truly defies description. For example, in just one area, this nation has been plagued and crippled by illegal discrimination, diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. It's strangled our economy. It has undermined public safety. It has made every aspect of life more difficult, more painful, and less safe. He has ended all DEI across the federal government. He has terminated all federal workers involved in promulgating these unlawful policies. He has ended diversity, equity, and inclusion in all federal contracting. He has restored merit as the cornerstone of all federal policy, restored the full, fair, impartial enforcement of our federal civil rights laws for the first time in generations. And he has cracked down on individuals across this government and nonprofits who have engaged in illegal racial discrimination against the American people. This includes to every educational institution in this country that ending diversity, equity, and inclusion, ending unlawful race discrimination is a precondition of receiving federal funds. He has also saved women's sports by ending the participation of men in women's sports. He has ended radical gender ideology across the entire federal government, and he's pressured the private sector to also end and combat radical gender ideology. He's reestablished the scientific and biological truth that there are only 2 sexes in this country, male and female, that those are biologically based determinations. They are not based and can never be based on gender identity. That includes rooting out of the Department of Defense all DEI policies, all critical race theory, all gender madness. And once again, having a military that is focused solely and exclusively on readiness, preparedness, and lethality. As I'm sure Kevin will talk about more, of course, he has undertaken a historic cost-cutting effort across the federal government, launching the first ever Department of Government Efficiency, uncovering corruption on a scale that we never thought imaginable, terminating every single federal worker that we have found to be engaged in the corruption and theft and the waste of taxpayer dollars, and already saving $50 billion in a single year, which over a 10-year period would be $500 billion. Just think about how vast and enormous that sum is. Of course, as you all know, He has renamed the Gulf of Mexico to its correct and proper name, the Gulf of America. He has renamed Mount Denali into Mount McKinley, part of a historic effort to restore patriotism and national pride all across this land. He has ended the weaponization of the federal government, restored the Department of Justice to its true mission of combating threats to this nation and keeping the American people safe. He has ended all federal censorship of free speech. This has been one of the greatest crises that has plagued this nation. Years and years and years of the federal government violating the First Amendment to take away Americans' right of free speech. President Trump has ended that, and he has demanded that all federal workers, all law enforcement, cease any effort to intimidate the rights of Americans or to police their speech. He has also restored the death penalty at the Department of Justice, including for illegal aliens who commit murder, including for those who murder cops, and including for all of those who threaten Americans with heinous acts of violence. The death penalty is back. Law and order is back. The streets are being made safe once again. On the public health front, he has launched the nation's first ever commission, the MAHA Commission, Make America Healthy Again, following the historic confirmation of RFK Jr., to finally uncover the true root causes of the public health crisis in this country, the childhood disease epidemic in this country, the spiraling rates of pediatric cancer, and devastating childhood sickness. He has finally created a situation where the federal health agencies in this country will be focused on preventing disease, on keeping children from getting sick in the first place, not sending them to a lifetime in and out of hospitals, suffering needlessly, when we can find ways to prevent this epidemic of illness. Then, of course, on Homeland Security. Today, it is officially the law of the land, at the conclusion of the congressional notification process, that 6 Mexican cartels and 2 transnational gangs, Tren de Aragua, or TDA, and MS-13, so 8 organizations in total, are now formally designated as foreign terrorist organizations, which means that every single member of those organizations who operates on U.S. soil is now, as a legal matter, a terrorist, and they will be treated as terrorists. This is a sea change in U.S. policy, and this means the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security, along with the rest of U.S. law enforcement and the Department of Defense, are now operating in a legal reality where these cartels are recognized as terrorists. And there will be a whole of government effort to remove these terrorists from our soil and to degrade their ability to threaten or undermine any American security or sovereignty interests. Border crossings, since the day he took office, are down 95%. I think it's almost impossible to even describe the scale and scope of that achievement. President Trump, within days of taking office, cut border crossings 95%. And those few who have dared to cross are being either prosecuted or deported. They're either facing significant jail time for trafficking, smuggling, harboring, aiding, impeding, or they're being immediately removed from our soil. Either way, at the end of the process, they are going home. He's re-implemented Remain in Mexico, and he has obtained historic cooperation from foreign countries all around the world in accepting their deportees back. And he has used the United States military to fully seal the southern border with a historic deployment of both active duty and National Guard troops, resumed the building of infrastructure, he has opened up Guantanamo Bay, and he's using military aircraft to carry out deportations all across this country. And ICE is joining with ATF, DEA, and FBI to carry out the largest deportation operation in American history. The criminals are going home. The border is sealed shut. America is safe, sovereign, proud, and free. We are a nation that everyone in the world understands all across this planet. You do not come here illegally. You will not get in. You will go to jail. You will go home. You will not succeed. This is the biggest and most successful change in any area of law enforcement that this nation has ever seen, and he did it in under 1 month. Thank you.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Stephen. One thing that President Trump cares most about is job creation, and it was about 7 years ago I had the honor of joining you in this room for the first time. And it looks like we've created a lot more jobs in the last month. Look at how many people are here. My estimate is about 180, but I didn't count. So thank you. It's really an honor to be back here. I think that I just want to go over a few things and then hand it off to Mike. The first thing is that the president has told us to prioritize fighting inflation. And he had to do that because, as you know, President Biden let inflation get completely out of control. And he did it with policies that made no sense. They made no sense. A lot of times people say to us, our friends the journalists, why are you doing that? But I like to think, why did they do that? Why did they spend so much money? And then why did the Fed print so much money so that we had inflation as high as we've ever seen since Jimmy Carter? So why did they do that? So we're addressing inflation. We didn't have to address it in the first term because it was always in the ones, almost always. But we're going to get it back there. And how are we doing it? Well, we're doing it with a plan that President Trump and I and others have talked about in the Oval that involves like every level of fighting inflation. First, the macroeconomic level. We're cutting spending. We're cutting spending in negotiations with people on the Hill. We're cutting spending with the advice of our IT consultant, Elon Musk. And then we're also looking into supply side things, like restoring Trump's tax cuts, maybe even expensing new factories so that there's an explosion of supply. If you have an explosion of supply and a reduction in government demand, then inflation goes way down. And then one of the things that you will say is, well, when are you going to see it? Well, the first thing that you'll see when the markets believe that we're going to get inflation under control is that the 10-year Treasury rate goes down, because that's how they think about future expected inflation. And so we're still going to see some memory of Biden's inflation. It's not going to go away in a month. But the 10-year Treasury before the last consumer price index had dropped about 40 basis points. 40 basis points because markets were optimistic about our ability to fight inflation. 40 basis points is kind of not a fun thing to say. Economists talk that way. I apologize. But the way to think about it is, for a typical mortgage, if that affects the mortgage rate, then it's going to save a typical family buying a house about $1,000 a year. And that's just in our first month. Okay. The second thing we've done is we've had a lot of trade talks. In fact, I was just meeting a minister from Mexico with Howard Lutnick just a couple of hours ago. And we're talking about reciprocal trade, and we're also talking about the fentanyl crisis. And so reciprocal trade is about our government treating other governments that treat us. We want trade to be fair. It turns out that Americans have been disadvantaged by foreign governments over and over, and President Trump wants it to stop. And the fact that struck me as most noticeable when I started to look at what President Trump was asking us to do is that last year we have data, U.S. companies paid $370 billion in taxes to foreign governments. $370 billion. Last year, foreign multinationals paid us $57 billion in taxes. We have 1/4 of world GDP. They have 3/4 of world GDP, and we're paying 370, they're paying 57. This is not reciprocal. We're going to try, or we're going to, fix it. The other thing that we've done is we've had an all-of-the-above energy approach that's led by Doug Burgum and Chris and a really large team, EPA. And we've already made so many actions that are going to affect the price of energy and lower inflation. We've opened up 625 million acres to energy exploration. We've cut 50 years of red tape that makes it so you can't have permits. And we've even made it so that when you go home, if you get a new one, then you can take a shower or flush a toilet or read under a light bulb. We're doing that too. So finally, let's just think about like the facts that we can see right now that we think are awesome. So guess what? Small business optimism has gone up by the most ever since President Trump came in. ISM, which is the measure of what's going on in manufacturing, it's expanding again for the first time in years. CEO confidence is the highest it's been in years. And the reason people are thinking this is that our policies give people cause for optimism. And then I want to reiterate what Stephen Miller said, because it's so important, and it's so important for financial markets to start to digest this, that if the Treasury Secretary or any cabinet secretary with Elon Musk is able to find some savings, say $100 billion, well, in CBO land, that's actually like about 10 times that, or maybe 12 times that, over a 10-year window. And so when you're thinking about the negotiations right now over reconciliation and thinking about, well, 4 trillion, 5 trillion, well, those numbers in terms of the savings are going to end up being small in all the ways that we're finding. And so we're incredibly optimistic about the future of inflation and the future of our economy, and we're optimistic because we're making so much progress so far, and we already see it in market prices. And with that, I'll hand it off to Mike.
All right. Thanks, Gil. Well, good afternoon. What a month, and what a sea change in our foreign policy. In addition to what we're doing on the border and restoring American sovereignty, in addition to what we're doing in our economy and the job creation and the inflation reduction, we are bringing the world back to where it was at the end of President Trump's first term, which is a world of peace, prosperity, and looking forward and getting us out of the chaos that we've just seen over the last 4 years. So over the last month, just to name a few, I had the honor of sitting in the Oval Office as President Trump spoke with President Putin and then immediately spoke with President Zelensky. And both of them said only President Trump could bring both sides to the table, and only President Trump could stop the horrific fighting that has been going on now for the better part of 4 years, and that only President Trump could drive the world back to peace. Both of those leaders said that in back-to-back calls. And of course, we just had our historic talks mediated by our good friends and partners, Saudi Arabia. We give great thanks to Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman for hosting, and sat down for the first time in years with the Russians and talked about a path forward with peace. On top of that, and one of the things that led to that was a tremendous confidence building measure that we had with the release of Mark Fogel. I'll remind everyone, the last time that we had an American released from the Russians, either we gave up a deadly spy, pressured our allies to give up a lethal killer, or we released, under the Biden administration, the world's most notorious arms dealer, Victor Bout, who, by the way, had one of his main clients for arms, the cartels in Mexico and Central America. We gave up none of that. This was released as a confidence-building measure, working with our great Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, and our Secretary of State as a first step towards opening these talks and then moving forward towards peace. On top of that, we've secured, just in a month, the return of 12 American hostages from Russia, from Bulgaria, from Venezuela, the Taliban, and Hamas. Excuse me, that's from Belarus, not Bulgaria. We also had, for some time, we took out a senior leader of ISIS, an international financier and recruiter that the military had been trying to take out for quite some time, and wasn't able to do so, frankly, because of a bureaucratic approval process. President Trump said take him out, and that ISIS financier and leader is no longer on this earth. We've also taken action to eliminate other terrorist organizations in the Middle East. We drove, before the president was even in office, he started talking consequences for people that would hold Americans. Heretofore, there's been nothing but upside. You take an American, you get some better deal. You take another one, maybe you get a better deal. No more. There is now nothing but downside for taking Americans illegally, either as hostages or illegal detainees. And when President Trump sent a very clear message across the Middle East, but particularly to Hamas, that there would be all hell to pay, we suddenly saw a breakthrough. And now we just saw the release of yet another group of hostages. There have been dozens now, including 2 Americans that we've seen once again reunited with their families. As part of the talks with King Abdullah, he offered, and I think the entire world is graciously accepted, to take 2,000 sick children, cancer patients, and others out of Gaza as a humanitarian gesture. 2,000 Gazans will come out of that hellhole that it is, that wasteland that Gaza is right now, with unexploded ordnance, with debris everywhere, with no sewage, with no water. And President Trump has put forward a plan to deal with the practical reality that is 1.8 million Gazans now truly suffering. And then, just to bring it back to our own hemisphere, we've seen literally in the last month, after years of national security experts, the generals in charge, and others testifying and ringing the alarm bells about the Chinese Communist Party's presence in our own hemisphere, particularly in the Panama Canal. We're seeing the leadership of Panama step away from the Belt and Road program, move away from China and back towards the United States, and even enter into talks and other negotiations about addressing the ports on either side of the canal. And then finally, last but not least, we've had 4 world leaders in the White House, in the Oval Office. We've had the Prime Minister of Japan, the Prime Minister of India, the King of Jordan, and of course the Prime Minister of Israel just in the last 4 weeks. And next week we'll have the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and we'll have the President of France, Macron. So President Trump is on what we call Trump warp speed. We are all honored to be really serving under his leadership and his vision, and truly, when we all say, and the president himself says, he is a president of peace. He is a president focused on restoring stability. I think the entire world saw what the world will look like without strong American leadership in the last 4 years. And it's truly been an honor to get us back to where we were and back on track under President Trump's leadership.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'm sure you're very eager to ask questions of these very smart people working very hard on behalf of the president. We do have somebody in our new media seat today. We have John Stoll, who is the head of news at X. As you all know, you're all on X. It's home to hundreds of millions of users, a large contingent of independent journalists and news organizations across geographies and political spectrums. And at the same time, X remains the go-to platform for many legacy news outlets. And I know, as I mentioned, many of the reporters in this room use X to attract eyeballs to your work. Prior to joining X, John spent 2 decades in journalism, including several years as an editor at the Wall Street Journal. We are excited to have room today. John, we'll let you kick it off. And as I said at the top, please direct your question to the individual up here who you'd like an answer from. John, why don't you begin?
All right, thank you very much. I am sitting in for a thriving ecosystem of journalists, independent and emerging news organizations who do depend on X for publicity, for a business model. And so I look forward to seeing many of them in this seat in months and years to come. I also thank you, Karoline, for opening this seat up to new media. It really is a testament not only to your open-mindedness, but also to innovation, that you'd actually think about, folks that are not traditionally credentialed to be in this room, and not only have a question, but also to witness. This is a very important intersection of power and the free press. And so just the ability to witness this and be part of it, brings everybody's game up. So I think this is for Mike. My question is about Ukraine.
Sure.
For about more than 10 years, I've been fascinated, like many, with what's going on. Was in Northern Europe, working out of the Baltics when Crimea was annexed, and was a lot of this came on Twitter. The platform used to be known as Twitter. Was a lot of European leaders would talk about their disappointment and solidarity with Ukraine, but when it came to actually doing something, it felt like they were passing a hot potato and sent it over the Atlantic. I wonder how much of what we're seeing right now out of the administration of President Trump is a call to Europe and the European leaders and the allies that we've traditionally had to pick up that hot potato and start doing something a little bit more concrete to win and preserve the peace in Ukraine. The second question I have is, it's related, is there's been a lot of speculation that President Trump and the administration might be manipulated by Vladimir Putin. I wonder if you can just talk a little bit about the administration's posture and your confidence in the competence of this administration to go toe-to-toe with Vladimir Putin.
Well, if there's I'll take the second question first. If there's anybody in this world that can go toe-to-toe with Putin, that could go toe-to-toe with Xi, that could go toe-to-toe with Kim Jong-un, and we could keep going down the list, it's Donald J. Trump. He is the deal maker in chief. There is no question that he is the commander in chief. And I, for one, and I think all Americans and around the world should have no doubt about his ability to not only handle Putin, but to handle the complexity of driving this war to an end. And then on your first piece on Europe, I'll take you back to 2014. You're right, there was a lot of hand-wringing in Europe and not a lot of action. There's also a lot of hand-wringing here in Washington under the Obama administration and not a lot of action. They literally threw blankets at the problem. And so I'll remind everyone that Putin had some type of conflict, invasion, or issue with their neighbor under President Bush with Georgia, under President Obama with Ukraine 2014, not under President Trump 45, and again with President Biden in 2022. The war should have been deterred. The war should have never happened, and I have no doubt it would not have happened under President Trump and will stop under President Trump again. But I just want to push back on this notion of our European allies not being consulted as we've entered into this process. I already mentioned the immediate phone call President Trump made to President Zelensky. He has talked to President Macron of France repeatedly last week. President Macron convened European leaders and then is coming here on Monday. Prime Minister Starmer is coming next Thursday. I've talked to every one of my national security advisor counterparts across the spectrum in Europe. I've talked to Secretary General Rutte, the leader of NATO, the Secretary General of NATO. We have repeatedly, by the way, we had half our cabinet, 7 cabinet officials, including the vice president, at the Munich Security Conference, all engaging, all listening, and all making sure our allies are heard. However, we've also made it clear for years, decades even, that it is unacceptable that the United States and the United States taxpayer continues to bear the burden, not only of the cost of the war in Ukraine, but of the defense of Europe. We fully support our NATO allies. We fully support the Article 5 commitment. But it's time for our European allies to step up. And one of the things that Secretary General Rutte said on our call was, this last couple of weeks have been a real wake-up call. And I asked him, what have you been missing the last couple of years? The fact that we are going to enter into a NATO summit this June with a third of our NATO allies still not meeting the 2% minimum, a commitment they made a decade ago, literally a decade ago, with a war on their doorstep, the largest war that they're all extremely concerned about, but yet it's, well, somebody else needs to pay. We've got other domestic priorities. It's acceptable. President Trump's made that clear. And the minimum needs to be met. We need to be at 100% in this June at the NATO summit. And then let's talk about exceeding it, which is what President Trump has been talking about with 5% of GDP. Europe needs to step up for their own defense as a partner, and we can be friends and allies and have those tough conversations.
Great. Peter.
Thank you, Caroline. I have a Ukraine one and a Doge one. Who can talk Doge?
Stephen.
All of us. Well, so Stephen, we're hearing about these Doge dividend checks that would be 20% back to taxpayers, 20% to pay down the debt. 60% is left. Who gets that?
Well, the way that it works is when you achieve savings, you can either return it to taxpayers, you can return it to our debtors, or it can be cycled into next year's budget, and then it just lowers the overall baseline for next year. So in other words, you can just transfer into the next fiscal window and then lower the overall spending level, and that means you have a permanent savings that way, and that reduces the deficit.
And when is it that people might see those checks?
Well, this is all going to be worked on through the reconciliation process with Congress that's going underway right now. As you've seen, the Senate's moving a bill, the House is moving a bill. The President has great confidence in both chambers to deliver on his priorities. I would just take this opportunity to note that President Trump has made a historic commitment to the working class of this country to fight for major tax relief and major price relief, and cutting spending taxes is the key to delivering on both of those promises, and President Trump is resolutely committed to doing both.
Thank you. And on Ukraine, I guess this is for Mike.
Sure.
after the president's post on Truth Social yesterday, need to know, who does he think is more responsible for the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Putin or Zelensky?
Well, look, his goal, Peter, is to bring this war to an end, period. And there has been ongoing fighting on both sides. It is World War I style trench warfare. His frustration with President Zelensky is that you've heard is multifold. One, there needs to be a deep appreciation for what the American people, what the American taxpayer, what President Trump did in his first term, and what we've done since. So some of the rhetoric coming out of Kyiv, frankly, and insults to President Trump were unacceptable, number one. Number two, our own Treasury personally made the trip to offer the Ukrainians what can only be described as a historic opportunity. That is for America to co-invest with Ukraine in their minerals, in their resources, to truly grow the pie. So case in point, there's a foundry that processes aluminum in Ukraine. It's been damaged. It's not at its current capacity. If that is restored, it would account for America's entire imports of aluminum for an entire year. That one foundry. There are tremendous resources there. Not only is that long-term security for Ukraine, not only do we help them grow the pie with investments, but we do have an obligation to the American taxpayer in helping them recoup the hundreds of billions that have occurred. So, rather than enter into some constructive conversations about what that deal should be going forward, we got a lot of rhetoric in the media that was incredibly unfortunate. And I could just tell you, Peter, as a veteran, as somebody who's been in combat, this war is horrific. And I think we've lost sight of that, of the literally thousands of people that are dying a day, families that are going without the next generation. And I find it kind of, frankly ridiculous. So many people in Washington that were just pounding the table for a ceasefire in Gaza are suddenly aghast that the president would demand one and both sides come to the table when it comes to Ukraine, a war that has been arguably far greater in scope and scale and far more dangerous in terms of global escalation to U.S. security.
And I do have one for Karoline. Does President Trump have a bet with Trudeau about this USA-Canada hockey? And when there is a big hockey game on, is the president watching for the goals or for the fights?
Probably both. I think he's watching for the United States to win tonight. I know he talked to the USA hockey team this morning. He talked to the players after their morning practice around 10 o'clock. And I also spoke to some folks from that team after. They were jubilant over President Trump's comments to the team. I believe they're going to put out a video of that call. So he looks forward. We look forward to the United States beating our soon-to-be 51st state, Canada. Bloomberg, go ahead.
My question is for Mike Waltz. Can you give us a readout of Kellogg's meeting with Zelensky that just wrapped up? And in particular, Zelensky publicly rejected this deal about the rare earth minerals. Where does that stand?
Well, we're going to continue to have, he needs to come back to the table, and we're going to continue to have discussions about where that deal is going. Again, we have an obligation to the taxpayer. I think it's an opportunity. The president thinks this is an opportunity for Ukraine going forward. There can be, in my view, nothing better for Ukraine's future and for their security than to have the United States invested in their prosperity long term. And then a key piece of this has also been security guarantees. Look, the reality that we're talking about here is it in Ukraine's interest? Is it in Europe's interest? It certainly isn't in Russia's interest or in the American people's interest for this war to grind on forever and ever and ever. So a key part of his conversation was helping President Zelensky understand this war needs to come to an end. This kind of open-ended mantra that we've had under the Biden administration, that's over. And I think a lot of people are having a hard time accepting that. And then the other piece is there's been discussions from Prime Minister Starmer and also President Macron about European-led security guarantees. We welcome that. We've been asking Europe to step up and secure its own prosperity, safety, and security. So we certainly welcome that, and we certainly welcome more European assistance. As I told my counterparts, come to the table with more if you want a bigger seat at the table. And we've been asking for that for quite some time.
And has Russia pushed for sanctions in your talks with them? And have you consulted with international partners and allies about potentially rolling back sanctions in these negotiations to end the war?
The talks with our Russian counterparts, both with my counterpart, the National Security Advisor, Secretary Rubio's counterpart, the Foreign Minister Lavrov, it really was quite broad, focused on what is the goals for our broader relationship, but very clear that the fighting has to stop to get to any of those broad goals. And as a first step, we're just going to do some common sense things like restore the ability of both of our embassies to function. And again, this is common sense in foreign policy world. They call it shuttle diplomacy. We have to talk to both sides in order to get to both sides to the table, and both sides have said only President Trump could do that.
Deanna.
Thank you, and my question is for Mike Waltz.
All right.
The president has called Zelensky a dictator. Does he view Putin as a dictator? And does he want Zelensky out of power? I know he's called for elections. And then thirdly, the head of the Defense Committee in Ukraine's parliament just has claimed that the U.S. has stopped selling weapons to Ukraine. Is that true?
Well, most of our weapons that have gone to Ukraine have been part of a drawdown authority where we've literally taken them out of our stocks and then eventually through appropriations started buying them again to refill our stocks. I'll just state that there has been a lag in a lot of that process. So many of our stocks, as we look at our operations around the world, are becoming more depleted. That's one of the reasons many people have had a lot of concern about when does this end? How much is it going to take? How many lives will be lost? How much will we spend? As a member of Congress, we repeatedly asked the Biden administration those questions, and we never got a satisfactory answer. Look, President Trump is obviously very frustrated right now with President Zelensky. The fact that he hasn't come to the table, that he hasn't been willing to take this opportunity that we have offered. I think he eventually will get to that point, and I hope so very quickly. But President Trump, as we made clear to our Russian counterparts, and I want to make clear today, he's focused on stopping the fighting and moving forward. And we could argue all day long about what's happened in the past.
Reagan.
Yeah, what about I have a
What about
question
Oh, the
for
IRS.
Stephen.
Excuse me, I just called on Reagan. Reagan, go ahead.
I have a question for Stephen and a question for Mike.
Sure.
Stephen, I can start with you. There have been
Thank you.
reports that Trump is unhappy with the rate of deportations and he wants them to be higher. Is the president happy with the rate of deportations, and are there any plans to speed up the process?
Well, first of all, we all appreciate the encouragement from the media to deport as many illegal aliens as humanly possible. So thank you, and I will promise you that the full might of the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, the Department of Defense, and every element and instrument of national power will be used to remove, with speed, all criminal illegals from the soil of the United States of America, to enforce final removal orders, and to ensure that this country is for American citizens and those who legally belong in this country. We inherited an ICE that was completely shuttered. We inherited a Department of Homeland Security whose sole mission was to resettle illegal aliens within the United States of America. In 30 days, the president sealed the border shut, declared the cartels to be terrorist organizations, has increased ICE deportations to levels not seen in decades, and we are shortly on the verge of achieving a pace and speed of deportations this country has never before seen. Thank you.
And Mike, there have been reports that there's some underground opposition to Trump's pick for Undersecretary of Defense and Policy, Elbridge Colby. Have you or anyone from the administration been personally lobbying senators to support Elbridge Colby?
Look, I've worked with Bridge Colby in the past. He has the president's full support to be the Undersecretary of Policy, which will be a critical policy arm for Secretary Hegseth going forward that will implement a lot of these. And really, that's been to the extent of it. I think there's been a lot of kind of, breathless, I don't know, back and forth in the press. But we're full speed ahead to get the president's team in place so we can implement his America First policy.
Thank you. Mike has spoken pretty extensively. Does anybody have questions for Stephen or for Mr. Hassett? Nobody wants to talk about the economy? Sure. IRS? Okay, go ahead.
This would be for either one of you. So we reported, several other outlets have reported that about 3,500 people are due to be lose their jobs at the IRS by the end of the week. If the goal of these spending cuts across the federal government has been to reduce the debt, why impose some of the deepest cuts we've seen so far at the agency responsible for raising revenue for the federal government?
Well, I think our objective is to make sure that the employees that we pay are being productive and effective. And there are many, more than 100,000 people working to collect taxes, and not all of them are fully occupied. And the Treasury Secretary is studying the matter and feels like 3,500 is a small number. And probably can get bigger, especially as we improve the IT at the IRS. And so I think that it's absolutely something that is on the table for good reasons. And the point is that don't just talk about the IRS, talk about all of government. That there are so many places. I live in D.C. You maybe live in D.C. where nobody's going to the buildings. People aren't commuting because nobody's doing their job. We look back and we see that there are all these people doing 2 jobs while they're getting a government payroll on the payroll. So the point is we're fixing that, and the IRS is a small part of that picture.
So you're saying that everybody who's being let go was doing a bad job?
I'm saying that we're studying every agency and deciding who to let go and why. And we're doing so very rationally with a lot of support from analysis.
Because we're being told by a lot of people who have been let go at other agencies that they were being dismissed because of poor performance, when in some cases they haven't even had a performance review yet because they've only been on the job a couple of months.
Yeah, I've never seen a person who was laid off for poor performance say that they were performing poorly. Okay.
Karoline?
Good point. Sure, Caitlin.
I have a question. I'll start with you, Kevin Hassett. Thank you for being here. And then I've got a question for Mr. Waltz. On these potential checks that you might send out from Doge, is there a concern as you're thinking through this that they could be inflationary?
Oh, absolutely not, because imagine if we don't spend government money and we give it back to people, then if they spend it all, then you're even. But they're probably going to save a lot of it, in which case you're reducing inflation. Okay, so and also, when the government spends a lot, that's what creates inflation. We learned that from Joe Biden. And so if we reduce government spending, then that's reduces inflation. And if you give people money, then they're going to save a bunch of it. And when they save it, then that also reduces demand and reduces inflation.
Okay, so you're not worried about it. And
No,
Mr. Waltz, to follow up on Peter's question, you wrote in an op-ed in the fall of 2023 that, quote, Putin is to blame, certainly like Al-Qaeda was to blame for 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still feel that way now, or do you share the president's assessment as he says Ukraine is to blame for the start of this war?
Well, it shouldn't surprise you that I share the president's assessment on all kinds of issues. What I wrote as a member of Congress was as a former member of Congress. Look, what I share the president's assessment on is that the war has to end. And what comes with that? What comes with that should be, at some point, elections. What comes with that should be peace. What comes with that is prosperity that we've just offered in this natural resources and economic partnership arrangement, an end to the killing, and European security and security for the world. The president's not only determined to do that in Europe, he's determined to do it in the Middle East. And just a few months ago, we had an administration that had tried for 15 months, week after week, sitting with you here and couldn't get our hostages out. Now we're at that point. We're back to maximum pressure on Iran, and we have just begun, and we will drive towards a ceasefire and all of those other steps. I'm not going to pre-negotiate or get ahead of the sequencing of all of that. It's a very delicate situation. But this is a president of peace, and who here would argue against peace?
Okay, so you do share that assessment. And can I follow up? In 2017, then
Jordan.
President Trump.
Go ahead.
Can I just follow up
Thank
really
you.
quick?
You just had 2 questions.
May I just
go ahead.
Mr.
I have an
Hassett.
important follow-up.
Jordan, go ahead.
So,
Go ahead.
Mr. Hassett, you were speaking about tariff revenue, and you also addressed a question about the IRS. President Trump has spoken about replacing income tax with tariff revenue, especially with all this waste, fraud, and abuse that we're seeing cut. Is that a possibility?
Absolutely. And in fact, if you think about the China tariff revenue that we're estimating is coming in from the 10% that we just added, plus the de minimis thing, that it's between $500 billion and $1 trillion over 10 years is our estimate. And that's something that is outside of the reductions that markets are seeing through the negotiations up on the Hill. And so we expect that the tariff revenue is actually going to make it much easier for Republicans to pass a bill, and that was the president's plan all along.
And I have a question for Stephen Miller about Doge. So you spoke about Doge. You said roughly $50 billion is set to be cut in a year. Waste, fraud, and abuse by unelected bureaucrats. We're hearing this ironic narrative from the president's critics and the left-wing media that Elon Musk is an unelected bureaucrat and he's doing all this terrible stuff. Isn't one of Doge's objectives to get rid of the federal bureaucracy, the deep state, and also who was running the White House when Joe Biden was in office? Because I don't know a single person who believes it was Joe Biden.
You're tempting me to say some very harsh things about some of our media friends. Yes, it is true that many of the people in this room for 4 years failed to cover the fact that Joe Biden was mentally incompetent and was not running the country. It is also true that many people in this room who have used this talking point that Elon is not elected fail to understand how government works. So I'm glad for the opportunity for a brief civics lesson. A president is elected by the whole American people. He's the only official in the entire government that is elected by the entire nation, right? Judges are appointed, members of Congress are elected at the district or state level, just one man. And the Constitution, Article 2, has a clause known as the vesting clause, and it says the executive power shall be vested in a president, singular. The whole will of democracy is imbued into the elected president. That president then appoints staff to then impose that democratic will onto the government. The threat to democracy, indeed the existential threat to democracy, is the unelected bureaucracy of lifetime tenured civil servants who believe they answer to no one, who believe they can do whatever they want without consequence, who believe they can set their own agenda no matter what Americans vote for. So Americans vote for radical FBI reform, and FBI agents say they don't want to change. Or Americans vote for radical reform on our energy policies, but EPA bureaucrats say they don't want to change. Or Americans vote to end DEI, racist DEI policies, and lawyers in the Department of Justice say they don't want to change. What President Trump is doing is he is removing federal bureaucrats who are defying democracy by failing to implement his lawful orders, which are the will of the whole American people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. I'm looking at the clock. We've almost had an hour of time. I know a couple of these individuals have a meeting to get to at 2 p.m., so you're welcome to follow up with my team for further questions. We're going to let these guys get back to running the United States government, and we will see you all later. President Trump will be speaking at 3 o'clock at the Black History Month reception. So thank you. It's good to see you. We'll see you in a bit. Thanks.
Are you watching the Black History Month reception, Mr. Miller?
Stephen, on the fraud, should we expect indictments? Are there indictments coming for all the fraud we found?
I'd love to follow up with you just at the time of Caroline.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so watching live coverage from the White House press briefing as we are 30 days into President Trump's second administration here. A lot of accomplishments, as you saw there, speaking from Stephen Miller and other White House officials, including the White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt, of course. So a lot more to come here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Of course, one of the streams is CPAC, so if you'd like to check that out. Also, another stream is the Kash Patel final vote on the Senate floor. That's starting to happen right now, so you can go ahead and click over there if you'd like to watch that. And also, later tonight at 6:30 Eastern, we'll have coverage for President Trump, who's speaking at the Republican Governor Association. So that's the latest that we have here. A lot of coverage, of course. Stay with Right Side Broadcasting Network on Rumble, YouTube, X, Facebook, Truth Social, wherever you are watching right now. Thank you so much for doing so. As it's about the top of the hour, just going to thank a couple sponsors here. Colonial Metals Group, a great sponsor at the network. FreeGoldGuide.com is where to go to get that free info kit. Also, we have a number of other sponsors as well. I'm going to double check which ones for this broadcast at this point, but I can tell you we are grateful, of course, for every sponsor that we have at the network. Just thanking a few of them right here in just a minute, as soon as I could pull those up. There they are. All right, so Brightcore as well. Just go to mybrightcore.com/RSBN. You see Kimchi 1 is the product on your screen. 888-722-0936 is the number. We also would like to thank Tax Network USA. 800-357-1415 is the phone number there. tnusa.com/RSBN. For that, you see the information there on your screen. If you're looking to settle back taxes, right there, a great group to help you out. And also Republican Red, republicanred.com. You can use the RSBN promo code for a discount off there as well. So republicanred.com, some great sponsorships right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, all patriotic groups with great products as well. So we're grateful for them. Let's also let you know about the RSBN situation when you can donate if you'd like. So just text RSBN to 801-801. And then also, if you'd like to get a newsletter, you just go to rsbnetwork.com/newsletter for more information. All right, so that ends this live stream for the White House press briefing. Thank you so much for watching this one. You have the choices of CPAC and also Kash Patel, the final vote with the Senate. A bit later, we may have around 3 o'clock from the East Room. The president will be there to honor Black History Month. And then also tonight, the president will speak at about 7:20 p.m. Eastern. We'll start our coverage at 6:30 right here on RSBN Live for the Republican Governors Association speech by President Trump. So for all of us here at Right Side, thanks so much for watching this live stream. We'll see you on the other one.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
Families across the nation have arrived at a heartbreaking crossroad to surrender their beloved animals at alarming rates due to inflation and soaring costs of living.
There are so many overcrowded shelters. So many dogs need a home, but it's all of us working together to solve this crisis.
This fight requires both doers and dollars. Join us at Big Dog Ranch Rescue. Please sign up today.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 six-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sailed because right now, every order ships absolutely free.